Hi, classmates and DocMel. I'm Rosamel Caetano, one of the reporters from Group D. In this video presentation, I'll be covering the topic of principles of layout design under Module 5's Layout and Packaging of Print Materials. To give you a brief overview, here's the outline of my presentation. So, I'll be sharing the definition of terms, 6 main principles of layout design, some useful examples, and finally, why is layout design important for development communicators like us? So, this is a very interesting topic that I think you will enjoy. Before I start, I want to give you a little exercise. Imagine that you're at the grocery store and you're given a choice to pick an item. Which one will you choose? I want you to list down your answers. Between A and B, which coffee do you think is stronger? Which chocolate bag do you think has more content? And finally, which bottle do you think is more sustainable? If your answers are mostly A, that shows the impact of a good layout and packaging. You pick the coffee because you can actually see the color of the coffee. The transparent chocolate bag shows that you know exactly how much you're getting. And the reusable water bottle immediately tells you that it's more sustainable. So there's actually a science and some principles that led you to make that decision. And those I'll be presenting today. To begin, let's identify what is layout and what is packaging, and can they be used interchangeably. So, layout is essentially how you see the visual components and elements of a design. In particular, it talks about arrangement of texts, images, and graphics. Packaging, on the other hand, is the holistic definition of it. It includes the layout, the type of paper, material, the cover, the binding, the ink used, etc. So, in my report, I'll only be covering the principles of layout design. A lot of people actually dismiss layout, thinking that it's only a fancy way of putting things together. As long as you have a message to say, people will hear you out and give you their full attention. That is actually wrong. With so many communication tools and resources out there, attention is really difficult to get by. So, if you want effective communication, you need to know how to put things together and present it in such a way that will grab your audience's attention. So, let's start with the first principle and the foundation of all design: designing with a purpose. According to acclaimed designer, theorist, and art director Paul Rand, designing is a problem solving activity. So, you want to ask yourself the important questions first. Am I designing this for a specific audience? Is the purpose of this to inform, to persuade, or to entertain? Think about your audience before you think about the fonts or the colors. Because at the end of the day, design isn't just about looking good, it's about making sense of your message. So I'll give you one example. So here is a side by side content of why designing with a purpose is important. They're both similar content. On the left, you've got the summary in bullet points, and on the right, the full block of text. So be honest, which one are you more likely to read? Most of us would go for the bulleted version because it's just easier to read on the eyes, which is the first element of designing with a purpose. Minimize lengthy content to make it easier for your audience to read. Next, to provide white spaces and graphics. Third, to highlight important information that will aid them in their decision making. And finally, don't overemphasize the design. So let's move on to the next principle. Design should be simple. It should be clear. We've all seen those flyers or websites that are so packed with text and graphics that you don't know where to look. So that's not really design, that's just noise. Simplicity is about helping people understand the message as quickly as possible. So, what are the elements of a simple design? First, don't use conflicting elements. Second, use a minimum of 2 to 3 typefaces per document. And third, don't place too many optical magnets on a page. So, what is an optical magnet? An optical magnet refers to the visual element of a page that draw the attention of the reader. As an example, take a look at these two ads for a blood donation campaign. The visual on the left has a clean layout with a main focus on the typography shaped like a blood bag. The main message is it only takes 30 minutes to save a life. It stands out right away. Now compare that with the visual on the right. It's harder to know which text to read first, and it could really benefit from simplicity. So if you were just passing by and you see both ads, which one would catch your attention and maybe even encourage you to donate blood? So let's move on to the next principle. Design should be unified. So you have to put related elements together so that the reader can have an idea how to read your material, especially if it's a long and complex document. Some good examples for these are how infographics and newspapers create their layout. So they usually stick to a consistent grid system so that every article, photo, or ad fits neatly without it looking random. Your eyes know exactly where to go first. So the information are laid out neatly so that the text is not too overwhelming, even if there's a lot of content in it. The next principle is that design should be balanced, but not too balanced. So, what does it mean? So, symmetry is really good visually, but if everything in your layout is perfectly symmetrical, equal on both sides, centered to the middle, and you keep reusing the same layout over and over and over again, it can start to feel a little bit boring. So, a little bit of symmetry can create movement. It makes the eyes travel around the page. For example, here I have two cover pages from the New York Times. Notice how the main title isn't centered as you might expect. The design guides your eye to read the materials in a certain way. On the right, you first see the bent spoon, then the title, and then the news lead. On the left, you read the title in the top left corner, and then your eyes naturally move toward the smiley at the corner. So even if there's asymmetry, there's still a sense of clear direction, and it captures your attention because both layouts they stand out. Next principle, we have contrast. So these is the secret ingredient that will make your layout pop. Without contrast, everything just blends together. Contrast can be size, color, weight, even space. Here I have a series of examples. In Paul Rand's iconic work for IBM, contrast was an important design principle. Rand made use of contrasting elements such as typography, colors, and different types of layouts. So, contrast really helps to create good harmony in your layout, provided that you use them correctly. Some designers would use the color wheel to guide them to select different colors. So, in the visuals here, you can see that the artist used very minimalistic colors. The most important thing is that you don't overdo it. Last but not the least, we have white space. So, white space is the breathing room in design. It makes complex layouts easier to read and keeps the page from feeling crowded. Instead of seeing a heavy block of text, white space breaks things up and highlights what's important. To give you some examples, the white space in both newspapers from the New York Times layouts break up the clutter of the text. This makes the text less clunky and a bit more easier to read. Some of the best designs aren't about adding more elements to it, but it's more about knowing when to stop and let the space do the talking. So there you have it. Those are the six principles of layout design. So, as development communicators, it's important to know that our audience has a very limited attention span. There is a study conducted by tech company Lumen Research, and according to the report, you have approximately 2.2 seconds to get your audience's attention when it comes to print media. So I think it's very crucial for us to capture our audiences in that short time frame with effective visuals following the principles that I've shared. So why does it matter for us development communicators to know about the principles of layout design? It's important for us because a good layout design captures attention. Even well written content is ignored if it's not visually appealing or well structured. Second, it influences behavior. A good design can guide decisions and actions of your audience. Third, it can potentially solve problems because design is a practical tool for addressing communication challenges. It also simplifies complex ideas and breaks them down into clear, small sized information. And finally, it engages readers and builds a connection that motivates action. So that summarizes my report. But before I go, I wanted to share my discussion questions with you. Number one, do you think that a good layout design can actually influence someone to make a decision? And number two, do you think AI generated content could take over design? And how do you think will it affect human creativity? So feel free to share your thoughts. I would love to hear your opinions and different perspectives about it. And thank you for joining me. I hope you've learned something from my presentation and that you can apply some of these principles in your layouts in the future. See you in the next module.